Hey there. So I'm here with Connor today from Counting Gravestones. Connor, how you doing?
Good to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a little introduction about your band, yourself, your band, Counting Gravestones, and
Yeah,
take some
yeah,
more
yeah.
background.
So, I'm in a band out of Salem, Ohio, called Counting Gravestones. We like to describe ourselves as a metalcore band with some deathcore elements, in a sense where we have some pretty heavy breakdowns, but we like having melody in our choruses. We play a lot in the Akron and Cleveland area. We've played a little bit in the Pittsburgh area, and we're trying to break into the Michigan scene right now. Um, but yeah, we're kind of a mixture of metalcore and deathcore, and kind of just whatever background that's kind of influenced all of us. There's Jack Strader on guitar, John Murray on another guitar, and then our bassist Tomo, and Jeff Strader, who is actually Jack Strader's dad, who's our drummer.
Okay.
And then there's me. I go by Graves on stage. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah.
So you said you're from the Akron area and you're trying to get into like the Pittsburgh and Michigan scene.
Yeah, we're actually from this. I don't know if you're familiar with where Youngstown is.
Yeah. Yeah. Baseball
Um,
Hall of Fame, right?
yeah, it's about I would say 30 minutes, 45 minutes away from Akron.
Okay.
We're pretty close to that area, essentially where Salem is. Um, and yeah, we've played a lot in Cleveland, and a lot in Akron, and a little bit in Pittsburgh. But yeah, the Pittsburgh and Michigan's kind of our main points of focus that we're wanting to push into for sure. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like especially East Michigan right now, they're having like a pretty big moment for like their hardcore scene right now. Uh,
That's what I've seen a lot. Yeah, a lot of hardcore bands around here are thriving. We actually have a band called Darling Decay that's actually in the same area. They're a beat down hardcore band, very Kublai-Khan-esque. They're
okay.
been playing a lot of shows lately. Really good band. You should check them out.
Yeah, because like I was living in Phoenix the past 4 years, so when I moved back to Chicago, uh,
Mhm.
and I'm from Grand Rapids originally, so when I found out that like Grand Rapids had like a screamo scene in Kalamazoo, and
Yeah,
then that East Michigan, like Detroit, Ann Arbor, has like a hardcore scene that's like respectable now, I was like,
right.
this is pretty sick. And like
Yeah,
Ohio has a ton of great bands coming out of it, and like a
absolutely.
super diverse amount of bands. Have you heard of a band called They Hung Us from Power Lines?
No.
Okay, they're like I don't know where in Ohio they're from exactly, but they have like they're more in the Scrams camp, but they are a bit on that like heavier metal side too.
Okay.
Really great. So
I'll
you
have to write
describe
that
yourself
down.
as like metalcore with elements of deathcore because you do have
Yeah,
those heavier breakdowns in your songs and the melodies are there. I'm a big fan of
absolutely.
melody. I think you add a bit of melody into a harder genre, you're gonna get great results. I mean, some of my favorite bands that do that: Merchant Ships, Pneumonia, I Hate Sex, Journal. All these
Mhm.
bands that have these great melodies in a genre that's very focused on almost as being as heavy as you can, but like
Yeah.
it's pretty great when you can throw in a nice melody, a good comfortable clean riff that like has that breakdown element into it. So that
Mhm.
way it almost doesn't feel like it's a lot less starting and stopping and more just going, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. It carries you from one place to the other.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly one of the main focal points of our band. I mean, I think everyone could be in agreement. Guitarist, both guitarists, bassist, and drummer. We've never wanted to shy away from at least keeping a version of melody
Hmm.
in all of our songs, one way or another. Just because I think that's always a key hook into someone that's getting into a genre, is something that gets caught in their head, and then they want to listen more, and then they start noticing little details as they repeat the song over and over again. But that's, I don't know, that's just me.
No, that's
So,
absolutely true, and it also helps when you're showing like other people,
oh
because
yeah,
if you're showing
absolutely.
someone who's not in the genre, like we're talking about a beatdown band, for example,
Mhm.
or a scrams or a metalcore band that's not into the genre, and it's just
Right.
like as brutal as it can be, and you're like, no, trust me, this is great. You just need to have 10 years of background knowledge on the history of the genre and realize why the simpler it gets, the harder it is. It's like
Right.
to the average listener, they don't want to spend that time. They're not interested. But if you
Well, at
can
that
give
point,
them,
because it just starts sounding like noise initially, and
yeah,
then
exactly.
yeah, it's like a fine wine. I like to say you have to build your tolerance up to it, I guess.
Oh yeah,
But
nobody
in
just
some
starts
ways,
off and being like, hey, I was at the record shop and I picked up Mersbo as my intro to getting noise and harsh music. It's like, yeah, this is something I just put on. It's like, no, you gotta build yourself
Yeah.
up to it. Which is why it's so. I always find it funny when people like gatekeep super hard and they're like, if you don't like Combat Wounded Veteran right away, you're not gonna like Scrams. It's like,
Right, right,
no, there's
right.
there's flavors to it, you
You
know.
know, it's like the same way I feel about like Necrogoblicon. Like,
Oh
I love
yeah,
that they're so jokey about their lyrics to the point
yeah.
where it kind of pulls people in because it's almost comical. Um, I don't know. Any way to bring people new into the scene is always a good thing for the scene in general.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like through
So,
avenues like TikTok right now, it's the smaller local scenes are exploding, and it's I think it's great.
yeah,
Because like a lot of the people in the scene are younger. They're in that like age of like 17 to like 22,
right.
and they have this like creative output where like it doesn't matter if you're good or not, you're just able to go out there and create stuff, and
Hmm.
that's more active and alive than ever. Like every house show I go to, every local DIY spot I'm at, like it almost is always packed to capacity, and people are buying merch, people are talking about it, people are sharing it. It's a great time for
Yeah.
local and independent music. Like it's
Yeah, what I've noticed, at least around here, the scene is kind of blown up with a lot of these I don't know, nostalgia nights where they're like emo nights or core nights or new metal nights that we actually have over in Kent, Ohio,
mhm.
over at the Outpost. We're actually playing there for Valentine's Day on the 14th for a core night. But it's like a almost like a karaoke thing where they have everyone pick their own songs and they get to go up on stage and play, and then they have like four bands to showcase uh, that are like just local bands
Oh,
in that
nice.
kind of scene or in that vein, and it's cool to see how many people show up for those shows, like and especially people my age or even younger than that. Like it's cool to see that I don't know, it's still influencing people.
Oh yeah,
um
absolutely. Some
yeah, no,
something I think is
it's
always
cool to see
funny
that.
is whenever you do see like some older people who may have been involved in like the scene like 20 years ago, like during its like peak, and then they say things like, "Oh, emo's back" or "screamo's back" or "metal's
Yeah,
back."
yeah,
It's like it never went anywhere. It's like you just
right,
it's like you just let Spotify or whoever run your playlist for the past
right.
decade, but it's still here.
Well, and the reality of it is they passed it on to their kids, and then it took them a while to become an adult and actually be able to
Yeah,
go out to these events on their own. It's just it comes in waves, really. I don't know. It's really I think it's an exciting time for that type of music in general, whether it's screamo, metalcore, deathcore, extreme music in general. Anything can be heavy.
yeah. It's
So,
also kind of weird to like experience almost like a nostalgia cycle coming around for what feels like just yesterday. Because like
mm.
for instance, like I was at like Sick New World last year, right? And
Oh, I
the
wish I could have
fan
been
base
there.
for like Bring Me to the Horizon was massive. I think like
Oh
like,
yeah,
and I'm like this Bring Me to the Horizon, like this band was like on its way out like 15
hmm,
years ago. Or the fact that System
yeah,
of a Down is now selling out stadiums. It's like
absolutely. And they haven't even released a album in how many years? Like,
this will be
it's
the
crazy.
19th year since their last album. Nor should they
Wow,
ever make another album again.
that's fair.
I look. Hey, they made music about being young and on drugs and paranoid and scared of the world and trying to find your place in it. I don't think they have the same perspective anymore.
That's
Uh,
fair.
a lot of bands that made music that stopped. Uh, there's a reason why they stopped.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
there's some bands that when they reunite and they try making new music, you're like, oh, I get why you stopped.
right.
Or you see bands that kind of just like overstayed their welcome. Uh,
Well, like perfect example of that, and I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but Motley Crue, what they've been doing recently.
dude, don't
Oh,
even get me started on them. Like, you want to talk about so they were the greatest band in their genre of hair metal.
absolutely.
They were
Yeah.
like the second concert I ever went to was Motley Crue, Poison, and the New York Dolls.
Mm.
And I've seen Motley Crue 6 times now.
Oh
And
wow.
the last time I saw them was like 22. It was
Uh-oh.
one of the worst shows I've ever been to. Like I it was like, okay, so Tommy Lee, one of the greatest live drummers I've ever seen. Every time I saw him, the dude blew my mind.
Yeah.
Mick Mars, the guitarist, absolutely amazing. Wrote some of the like wrote some of the greatest riffs of all time, in my opinion, in terms of like
Unmatched.
catchy
Yeah.
riffs. You can't beat them. And then like so the last time I saw them before they broke up was like 2015. Then they
Mhm.
went on that break, and even back in like 2015, like it wasn't bad. It was still great in my opinion. But that last show I saw, that I was like, dude,
Ooh.
give it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, Poison put on a better set than you guys did. Joan Jett crushed it, but like this is like my top three worst live singers I've ever seen are like
Mhm.
Vince Neil in 2022, Axl Rose in 2021,
Oof.
and
Yeah.
uh, Bob Dylan any of the number of times I've seen him.
Really.
Uh,
Wow.
well, like yeah,
Uh,
it was also the funniest
that's
thing
tough.
about Axl Rose when I saw him. He changed his shirt, like his T-shirt, in between every single song.
Oh no.
I don't know what the purpose was. Maybe to advertise Guns N' Roses shirts.
Maybe he was just sweating that much. I don't
Well,
know.
everyone on stage, I mean, yeah, it was a show in Arizona. Everyone was sweating, but it was just like in between every set. And so he would walk off stage and come back in a new Guns N' Roses shirt. It was the funniest
Wow.
thing.
I think like another example of like a band that I kind of think stopped because they lost that drive or I guess the passion for what they were preaching about. Um, and this is not necessarily that they were bad, but I think okay, so my first metal concert ever was Sleep at
Oh,
the
sick.
Stage AE, a stoner metal band.
Yeah.
And then there was like the Weather Warlock that opened for them. This guy that like came out with a weather machine that played sounds based off of like the weather patterns in the sky. And he just sat there in a
That's
wash
so
costume
sick.
and played bass.
Wait, you said the Weather Wizard?
Oh, the Weather Warlock.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think I haven't looked into him since. I bought a postcard and I can't find it. But when I was there, I bought a postcard and it's just him sitting next to this weather machine in a Sasquatch costume
Oh my god.
playing bass.
It gets better,
Yeah,
huh?
it's so odd. Yeah, but I mean, like, and then so my second concert, like metal concert, was a Slayer concert, and it was supposed
Nice.
to be their last tour, right? And then they had a second leg, and they
Sure.
actually came to Cavalli. I got pit tickets for that one. But like, I mean, it was so cool to see them live because I mean, at that time, at least in the middle school, in the high school, the Big Four were everything to
Oh
me.
yeah.
Like me and all my friends, we were like in that thrash era in my brain. Like, oh, there's nothing else better than the Big Four. And then I learned what Slipknot was, and that completely changed my perspective. And like, um, anyways, yeah, it was a big deal for all of us to go to this concert, and it was cool seeing at the end of the show, Tom Araya puts his bass down, everyone leaves the stage, he looks out into the crowd, doesn't say a word, is just looking at everyone. He kind of just makes eye contact with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And like you get emotional about it because you realize he's saying goodbye to this part of his life
Yeah.
because you realize he doesn't have that drive anymore. I mean, like something as extreme as this, I mean, it burns out just as quickly. And I don't know. It was something very poetic seeing one of my idols that's just like kind of gazing upon what he believes is like the end of his career. Um, I don't know. It was just like another perfect example of one of those bands that kind of just were looking at the like ending at the right time before they were too old and not sounding nearly as good as they were on stage. Gary Holt was a great performance. Like people were throwing Coronas to him, and he would chug them, throw them back, do a solo and like just yeah, in between him and trading between Carrie and Gary. I
Yeah.
didn't even notice that. Sorry, I'm rambling, but yeah, great show. One of my favorite shows I've ever been to since. So,
Yeah. I've seen Slayer 4 times. That was my first show. Actually, was Anthrax, Megadeth, and Slayer
oh,
in
that's
Grand
so cool.
Rapids. Yeah, that was actually supposed to be the Big Four tour. Like they did the Big Four show, like
Mm,
the Stratosphere show, and then they were gonna do it, but then uh, Megadeth wanted it to be like a co-headlining. Like the big rumor is that like Metallica wanted too much money, but
mm,
I think the real fact was that like Megadeth wanted to be a co-headlining thing where like they rotate, but then
mm.
Metallica's like we're Metallica now. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't see people walking on the street in a Rust in Peace T-shirt. You see And
that's
Justice
fair.
for All. You see Bastard Puppets. Um,
Oh yeah, no
like,
question.
and then like it's funny. Like a decade later, Metallica's on this tour where they're playing two sold out nights in each city at a stadium. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
Megadeth is opening for Five Finger Death Punch. It's like
it's tough. Yeah, I don't know.
it's
It's sad to
rough.
see where they're in it,
Um,
but
but yeah, Slayer's like and like great shows like that really set the tone for like
mhm.
what the culture and the scene can be. Is it's great. I love those like
Mhm.
watershed moments. And something I that's one of the reasons why I love being involved in like local music is because you get to see that almost every night. Like
Oh yeah, the seeing those moments form in the crowd is like what I live for. Like
yeah, oh yeah,
like going to those shows and playing a song and then seeing a pit open up and it's your song playing is like the biggest dopamine rush ever. I don't
yeah.
know. It's like
No, I can only imagine like just people standing still, not knowing who you are, and then you play one or two songs and people go like crazy, go into it.
mhm.
What songs do you play that like get people that to that level? Do you think? What are your go-to
So
like we need to fire the crowd up kind of songs?
so we always have opened with one of actually the first single we released off of our EP, No Rest for the Dead. Promoting it when it was coming out. Tombstone Doors, that's the first song we play most of the time when it comes to our sets, just because it's so fast and there's a whole solo section and there's a whole breakdown that's just really kick ass and gets people going. Also, really just catchy chorus.
Nice.
But no, that one's really fun to do. I would say another one would be Facade. It's a little slower, but the intro is a very good build and gets people going. One of the other ones is definitely Detrimental Decay. I don't, there's so many. I mean, like it depends. There's definitely like songs like we've played like in hardcore settings, and we've played in like stage settings, and we've noticed certain songs work stage setting wise better than
Mm.
in the hardcore setting. Like we have a song that's very hardcore influenced called Eternal Torment. And it's one of the few times where we just went full heavy. There's very little melody in it. It's just trying to be kick ass and in your face. And I remember playing at the Hell Pit in Youngstown, which is a basement at this guy's house, with a pentagram spray painted on the concrete down there. And that breakdown hit, and that whole basement vibrated. It was really cool.
That's sick.
But at the same time, there's songs like Detrimental Decay or our first song we ever played, Bloodbound, when we have a lot of really like fans that have seen us over time, like and you being able to hear people singing Bloodbound back to us is one of those cool moments too. You're like, holy shit, people know
Yeah.
our music, which is always like a surreal thing for me. But yeah, I think there's so many. It's very hard to choose like one specific song. I would say that like every song has their moment for
Yeah.
sure.
So like
Um,
what what would you say is like your favorite song you've put out with Counting Gravestones right now? Like that might not be the most popular, but it's your favorite that you've maybe put the most work into or spent the most time with.
I think okay, so that's I would say that'd be a tie between "Pray for the Fall" and "The Masochist" because "The Masochist" was unique in a sense where I got to write it with a good friend of mine, Mikey Wrightson, from a band called Iravera, another really good I would say metalcore influence, a little lighter than what we are, but in a good way. From what my understanding, they're getting a little heavier pretty soon, but their their vocalist Mikey, I've been good friends with him. They actually helped us out a lot early on in the scene,
Nice.
getting us some shows. And we've got them on shows with us, and back and forth. And we eventually wanted to get him on a song, so I had John write this like black metal esque, metalcore esque sound um, that me and Mikey could write lyrics to. And this whole song is essentially about being eaten alive by a significant other and like enjoying it. It's just like that those kind of elements. And I don't know, it was just so fun. It was gory, it was gross, and like it was one of the few times where um, it was cool to bounce back and forth with someone who was also lyrically inclined, wanting to write with you, um, and like kind of sticking with that theme and seeing where it can go. No, it was, and then of course Brandon Folsom um, was the producer on that. That was really fun to do because we actually ended up recording all the sound effects you hear at the end of that song. That is all me sitting in Brandon's recording booth, smashing up green peppers, raw chicken, tomatoes, all this like gross, squishy stuff that simulates gore or bone snapping and stuff like that. And then I had to sit on his lay down on his floor and cackle for like 15, 20 minutes until we were happy with one track.
Nice.
But there's just a lot that went into that. And the music video was so fun to do with Keith Kelly. He's from Nexus Studios in Youngstown. They do music videos and audio recording. He just basically doused us all in blood and told us to just rock out, essentially. So that was really fun to do. There was just a lot that went into making that song, which is why I probably enjoyed the looking back on that one the most, and the effort that we put into that as a group. But Pray for the Fall, I would say, just because I like the catchiness of that sound and that song specifically, just because I think it's a good blend of heavy and melodic for sure. Didn't
Okay.
mean to ramble there, my
No, that's
bad.
cool. That's why I ask about passion and stuff because you get to go on those long tangents and explain yourself. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, definitely gonna give that a closer listen next time I next time I put it on.
Awesome, awesome.
Because yeah, that was one of the songs that stood out to me. Masochist was. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
but yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and be sure
Of
to let me
course,
know.
yeah. Thank you for having me, Alana. Really.
Yeah.